And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Business Octopus live stream. Now, you may notice that I am here by myself today. That is because, unfortunately, Amanda has some internet troubles. She's on holidays and not in the best comm spot. However, she will be online and she will be joining us in the comments. So we've got the show comments turned on. And if you've got any questions and you're watching, you can still engage with her in the comments feed. So hopefully, thank you for watching. If you've been familiar with all of our series to date, we're just working through this at the moment. If she turns up halfway through, I'll add her in. Otherwise, we'll just keep trying in the background. But fortunately or unfortunately, you're stuck with me today. So what I wanted to talk about was hiring your first team member. So going from zero or just yourself to a team is a big step. You're going from an individual to 100% increase in your workforce. Now, whilst you're busy doing the work, it's really hard to, like by the time you have to hire, you're already at 100% capacity. So now you have to go and find the next person to go and do some work with you. So, excuse me, you're going to have to go and do the recruitment piece as well. You have to go and write job descriptions. You have to go and write a job ad. You then have to post the ad, read through, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 applicants, shortlist the ones that you want, and then start to bring them into your team. But then once you've done that, you've got to onboard them. It's a huge mountain of work. And so today, what I want to do is really delve into the process that we went through and how we went from, the one person wolf pack through to a team of about 25, getting close to 30. This is a moving number, so it's really hard just to quote something. But effectively, how to get past that roadblock of the kill a bear, eat a bear, feast or famine cycle. So, all right, let's quickly grab up a little bit of something that I prepared earlier. So we should have our presentation. Yep, cool. So I think there we go. So here we go. We've got basically I've been invited to a speaking engagement, and you're going to get a little preview. You're not going to get the full one. If you're watching today, please do come and see us in the precinct today. It is the founders, six-figure founders trying to get to seven-figure founders. So if you're a six-figure founder and you want to learn more, come along and see me today. I'm going to be at an event in the precinct in Fortitude Valley in Brisbane. If you're in Brisbane, you'll know all about it. But you're only going to get the preview version here with the full version if you turn up. Okay, so getting from 0 to 25 staff, this has been my journey, and I'll talk you through some of the pitfalls, some of the experiences we've had, some of the mistakes we've made, and everything that it's kind of taken to us to get to this point here. So finding the right people is hard. And ideally, this will help you de-risk and make it easier to get your first person over the line. So I kind of alluded before, the problem was that you've got this kill a bear, eat a bear, if you've ever heard that saying. But basically, you're in this vicious cycle of find the work, do the work. When you're finding the work, it's like a full-time job. You're doing everything you have to go and find a job or find a project or find clients. Then when you're doing the work, you're too busy to go and find the next client. So when that work finishes, now you're like feast or famine. You've got nothing. You've got to go back to finding the work. And so the ideal phase is to get to the position when you are finding the work and doing the work. And that often requires a team, or it requires really good systems early on. So, I put in there, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? But you need staff to give you time to find clients. You need clients to be able to afford the staff. So you can see that cycle is very much, dependent or interdependent, like a vicious cycle. So this is me. I started in the garage. This is not the first photo, but I thought it was a pretty good one. At this point, I, saved up enough money to, print a shirt. As you can see, we've still got the same logo. I think the first video I ever did on this, I was sitting in the car and I filmed myself. I was very not presentable on camera. I had just trying to figure out YouTube at that point, and I filmed myself, and then I like sitting in the car for about 30 seconds. Hey, I'm going to do this little thing called Relevate. This is my journey. Let's see how it goes. That's literally all the video says. And that now is a unlisted video. So only members of the community can actually see it. It's not public. I don't want to make it too well known. Anyway, this is me in a garage, which kind of epitomizes like the founder's journey. You know, like, yes, the walls look nice, but if on the floor was concrete floor, I had a couple of rugs out. There's a few shelves. It was very cold. There was a sliding door where the rolling door was. And it was a little bit hollowy and echoey and all that sort of stuff. But we made it work. And this is where most businesses start. This is the founding journey, I guess. And to get from this point to then another person, you know, like you're doing everything. You're creating all your brand. You're doing all the outreach. You're, you know, trying to find clients. Then when you get the client, now you're dramatically trying to do all the work to keep the client. And then once that project's finished, damn it, now we're going to find the next client. So, you know, in that last slide, that was a screenshot of me recording a video. And then in this one, you can see I've got someone in the background. This is Casper. He was our intern. He was our very first employee, number one. And at the start, you know, I met him at a networking event and he wanted to learn and I needed an extra pair of hands. And initially he was like, don't pay me. I will work for free. So I actually was like stuffing money into his hand before so he couldn't argue about it. And, you know, trying to pay him to give him some money because I wanted this to be a long-term deal. I don't want to take advantage of people, but it really helped to have someone who is willing to kind of like fractionally help. And so Casper came along to client meetings. This was us sending a photo showing that we were working on something for a particular client who had sent an email, and we were just saying, hey, yep, we're on the case. Here's Casper. He's doing his bit in the corner. And you can see just under where Casper's sitting is all concrete floor. That's the sliding door. And we had a little partition there so that the light didn't, you know, make it too hot. And again, there's that whiteboard, but this is really just the space that we're operating in. Then COVID comes along. And I'm sure this is most people's story where they've had some kind of thing that has stopped them in their tracks or changed their plan for them. So you can see on the left there, I'm holding up a uniform. So I used to be in the army and I'd gotten out of the army. I've been out of the army for quite some time, about 5 years at that point. And then work just stopped. People stopped making decisions. People stopped deciding that they were going to do a project. They're like, let's just hold and see what happens, see where this COVID thing goes. And that meant that I had no revenue and I had to basically solve that problem. So I went back and did some reserve days and assisted the chloroquine trials in the Malaria and Infectious Disease Institute of the Australian Defence Force. And so by doing that, it was basically just an office job. You know, I was formerly infantry and then intelligence, but I was doing just some paper pushing. But that let me back in my pay, and you know, I was able to keep the home fires burning whilst I was sorting all of this out. Then in the middle there, I was kind of studying through all this as well, and I finally got my graduation for my MBA. And as you can see there, I'm wearing a suit at the top and shorts down the bottom. I kind of did that intentionally because I didn't get a graduation, and I actually attended the graduation. You can see there's the light ring and the microphone in the background whilst in that office. And I was kind of looking good from the waist up, and I had my little certificate and everybody else was on Zoom. And that was how we did our graduation ceremony. And then on the right there, you can see Casper. Like I said, not long after that, we got kind of released again, and Casper had his graduation. And so I went to that. And so at that graduation, I actually met another person by the name of Antoine, who still works with us to this day. So Casper has gone on to do other things. So he finished his degree whilst working with us. He worked with us full time for a couple of years. And then he's gone on a different pathway. You know, we helped him to get to where he wanted to be. So, we feel good about help building his career and his trajectory. And we're still friends. We go hang out. And he introduced us to another person, Antoine, who is, one of our lead salespeople. and he works with us. You know, he studied in Brisbane. He's from France. He studied in Brisbane and worked with us here, and now lives in Thailand and still works with us from over there. So the people you meet are often the employees that you would have early on, because you know you get to build a relationship, you get to trust them. You're not just putting basically what feels like putting all your money on black at the casino when you go down to the recruitment pipeline and giving all these people, you know, getting their resume and then giving them, you know, 6 months salary to figure out if they're any good. So there's a lot of risk, and you need to try and de-risk it by building in the network before you need the people. And then you can sort of identify people and say, hey, would you like to come and work with me? And that makes that first hire a lot easier. Fast forward, we get released a bit more, and now we're able to travel. This was actually the first time I'd seen my business partner, who's Rana here on the right. And so we hadn't seen each other face to face for 10 years. We were in the army together 10 years ago. And then 5 years later, we'd started a business together. And then we'd been running this business for about a year and a half through COVID lockdowns, babies. He was about to come to our place and broke his ankle. And so we just kept each other apart due to situations out of our control. And then at a certain point, we were released, we were allowed back again. And so we started traveling around. And having a business partner really helps, because you've got someone that is like an employee but not an employee. They work much harder. They're invested in it as well. And, you know, sometimes we've gone through business partners and not had the best ones. And we've gotten to the point where we found one. We finally got to the right sort of relationship. But, you know, everything's a pipeline. You've got to get through those relationships. You've got to talk to these people. You've got to suss people out and learn to trust them, and they have to learn to trust you. And eventually you will find the right person. Same goes with staff, same goes with business partners, same goes with life partners, whatever it is. And so by having Rana, we were able to branch out into another world. So Rana was born in India, came to Australia when he was 10 years old. He was in the Australian Army together, so he's as Aussie as they come. But luckily has a family over there and able to and knows the language and knows his way around. So we were able to go there, and this is at the time when we acquired another company, and we needed to ramp up staff dramatically. We tried hiring people, you know, in Australia, but there was a very strong skills shortage. So it was a problem that we couldn't just get anybody off the street and get them to do the work. So I've got this image here is because this is where we stayed when we went to Chandigarh in India. And this couch right here is where we interviewed our first 3 staff. And 3 of those, well, those 3 staff still work with us to this day. This is 3-4 years ago now. And here's employee number 1 on the Indian side. And this is our first office. So, you know, we kind of like stumbled our way through and tried to get something happening. You know, for the first week and a half, he actually worked out of the hotel lobby. So we gave him a laptop, sat him down. We actually was the hotel lounge, which is on the top floor, looked very similar to the lobby, but they had like tea, coffee, and all that sort of stuff. And so we had to kind of like scan him in the morning, go and take him out to lunch, and then scan him back out whilst we went and looked for offices. And we found this office, and we were in there pretty quickly. And that was why we were building this office. Now, this office is much bigger. I'm probably 2/3 of the way through towards the back wall. If you've ever seen any of the other photos, we have basically another room for 35 people. And so we definitely started in this office with like 6 people. And so now the team has grown quite significantly. There's still a bit of room to fill up, but you know, we were making a big investment. We were making a big push. I have a question here is, what do you attribute your high retention rate to? Okay, so in terms of the way we structure work, we have expectations. We give them a bit of freedoms. We give them more room, and we let them work, you know, reasonable hours. I think, you know, in India, people are used to being made to work 8 to 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours. 6 or 7 days a week, and the boss can be very controlling and very micromanaging. And so they get into our office and they have a lot more room. They have a lot more freedom of action. Yes, we demand things. We changed the management style. We had to kind of break their old thinking and put them into the new thinking. We had to hire the right kind of people. But now heaps of them have worked there for ages. They don't want to leave. They said, there's no other place like this. We love it here, and we want to keep, making Relevate successful. And so by the way that we've structured the work, the way that we've structured our relationships with them has allowed us to keep our team. So what would I do if I could do it again? I think early on, everybody's trying to be scrappy. Everybody's trying to save money, make it quicker, or do the tricky thing that makes leads happen or something like that. So, like the amount of hoops I see people jump through with dealing with just LinkedIn is insane. There's 1,000,001 apps. And then if you get the scraper and you use the spreadsheet and you use this automation tool and you do the thing, and it ends up being such a convoluted process that maybe, the next person wouldn't understand. The problem with that is that, you might bypass something, hit some algorithm and get some other random thing happening. But at the end of the day, no one else is going to be able to do that. No one else is going to be able to pick that up and run with it. So you need to change the way that you're doing things. You need to do it the proper structured way. Like the amount of times we see people end up with some Microsoft Home license and they've tried to use, like aliases to do this, that, and the other, and they've shared accounts, and then they've gotten hacked, or, the thing breaks and they've got to completely rip everything out and start again in a proper enterprise instance. Things like that, where people are trying to be cheap. It ends up costing so much more later. It's ridiculous. So stop doing workarounds. Plan as though someone else without your experience is going to do the thing. Like if I'm the expert and I'm hiring somebody, I need to train as though they're someone who's going to be like an intern, someone who's their first time, who's ever coming in to do that role. And we need to give them the skills to be able to do some of what I'm doing. Like if you're wearing 100 hats and you can't just hand off 10 hats altogether, like you can't even hand off one hat sometimes. You've got to give a little piece of all of them, or you need someone who's early on able to do a lot of things, very generalist. So plan as though somebody else is going to do everything. Do everything really early on and record. It's so much easier to, when someone starts on their first day, and you can give them a video folder and they can watch 50 videos and go and know exactly what they have to do. If, however, they are doing, reading documents, you've got to sit there and write documents, and writing a document might take 2 hours. Recording a video might take 2 minutes or 20 minutes. It's so much easier, and which you can then run through video transcription and then use AI to get out an SOP from that. So it's so much easier if you just start documenting everything early on. Do it the right way the first time, document what you're doing, and hand them over the process document, hand them over, the simplistic version. So yes, you can use AI to do dot points from your video. You might want to go back in, but just keep it simple. Dot points. Make it easy to skim through, easy to read, easy to search. You don't want people to have to go and, read a 500-page deep text Karl Marx style document where it's just so complicated language. And you really need to break it down in a modular way. Just do one article, does one thing. Otherwise, it just becomes a nightmare. You don't want to have things, that sort of like tangle up in terms of the concepts that you're trying to train someone on. And simplify. McDonald's, Starbucks, all of these companies scale because a 16-year-old can run the business. They are so basic, and everything is in a checklist, and everything is on a dot point, and everything is a video and a training and a something. And that's how they scale. All right, considerations. Your first hire has to be a general. So I sort of mentioned it before. You don't want to have 100 hats and then have to hand over. So you know what I mean by hats is that, like the business owner wears many hats. They've got to wear the HR hat, the sales hat, the compliance hat, the firewood and safety hat, all of those sorts of things. You can't give everything to one person unless they're like well trained and real. And your first hire is probably going to be low end. Even if you get a well trained person, they're going to be expensive. So your trade off is time versus money. If you have the money, great, go for someone who knows what they're doing and can take more off you. If you're hiring someone because you've only just got enough and you're pretty flat out, you're going to have someone who's pretty basic. So you can't give them everything. So you might give, instead of all 7 hats, you might give them a piece of each hat or like a basic task. And then there's not going to be enough volume for that to be worthwhile. So you have to give them lots of tasks. And they have to be a generalist to be able to do all of those tasks. The other thing you can do is hire fractionally. That's the fancy term that everyone's saying for get a VA, get an outsourced person, get someone in 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, part-time. That's going to help you because you don't then have to hire a full resource at 100 grand a year or 80 grand a year or whatever. You can get someone for, $500 a week and they're only doing, half a day or something like that. That will help you just get that little piece off the ground. And the next one is, I guess, say no. That is, don't go and do more and more complex things. Try to narrow down as fast as you can onto the niche that works. And I get it. Small business has to experiment. Small business has to test. And eventually you're going to get down to the thing that works. So be there, be present, and make sure that you are not taking on things that are completely left field. And again, yes, I get it. Sometimes you got to do what you can to get money in the door to make sure the business still runs, but try not to overcomplicate the business. That goes back to keeping it hella simple so that anyone can take it on. Hand off your low risk tasks. Don't always think that your low risk tasks are the ones that are in your business. Maybe they're outside your business. I've got here lawn mowing, cleaning, online groceries, things that take your time that don't necessarily take a lot of training and experience and knowledge. Like if I go and get a lawn mowing person to come in, I can literally spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes going, this is what I want done. Make sure that happens, every fortnight instead of every month. And then that's going to give you so much more time back because now I don't have to do all the extra stuff that you don't see. So yes, they're highly efficient. They're well practiced. They're going to get in there. They know what their job is. The job is quite simple, but they've already got the machine is prepped. The fuel is ready. They don't have to go out and go, oh, the thing won't start now. I have to go and get another spark plug. There's another hour to go to the shop to get another spark plug. I'm out of fuel. Got to go another hour, half hour, whatever, go to the fuel spot, come back and do that. Then you got to mow. The blades are blunt. These sorts of things add up. So sometimes just getting someone else to do something can be a really big help. Your bookkeeper is probably your best friend. That's your first best call if we're strictly going to stay on the business topic. The other one is be prepared. You're not going to have to hire your first hire on your first day of running your business. You declare, I'm in business. You've got time now to go and write your first job ad. Maybe not the ad, maybe the job description. Maybe you go, think about it and go, this is the kind of person that I would want for the first hire. Get your employment contract together. You got time to do that. Start recording your videos. You got time to do that. Start putting money away so that when you need to hire them, you've got a buffer for when they have to onboard and then when they have to train. And then when they start doing some tasks, but they're not super effective and you have to go and help them a lot. And then eventually they'll become effective, they'll become independent, and you can take a step back. You also need to allow for the fact that maybe the first hire doesn't work out and you're going to have to go again. So build that risk mitigation into the process. Your first hire, you have to plan the fact that you are going to have to train them. And if you don't train them, they're going to get annoyed, they're going to get frustrated, they are going to leave, and then you will have wasted all of your time and money. So make sure you allow for that before they start. Your first hire is a big risk because you're going from just you to you plus somebody else. So it's going to be a massive, massive risk. It's all or nothing at this point. Maybe when you've got 50 people and you hire one, that's, like a 5% risk. If you've got 100 people and you hire one, that's a 1% risk. So if you've got one person and you hire one person, that's 100% risk. That is everything you're betting your money on, is this one person working out. But at scale, that's less and less of a problem. The more people you add, the less each individual becomes a risk to you in the hiring process. So remember, get the first one right. So the other one is, founders get to be scrappy. Employees need structure. Employees are looking for, what have I got to do today? I'm only here for 8 hours. When I go home, I'm not going to think about work. Yes, you might be able to get someone to think a bit more, like your business a little bit more, but effectively you're going to have like in Australia, we've now got the right to disconnect. So you're going to have someone who is only 80% of the way there in terms of investment in the success of your business. Owners are always like the ones that are like, that is their life, that is their baby, that is what they created, it is their sole purpose of being. But for an employee, that is not the case. Their sole purpose of being is to, get the money and do the things that they want to do outside of work, which might be go on holidays. Yes, work is a very important part of life, but I think founders just need to get in their head that no one else is going to work in the business like them. So don't be, yes, you could be scrappy, but you need to create system structure and procedures and like processes so that your employees can go, oh, well, I know what I have to do. I know what I have to do it by. I feel comfortable. Boom, I'm going to get in and do it. And then I'm going to step off and I'm going to go home and I'm not going to think about it. Anyway, yes, be prepared. Very important. Now, often people hire too soon. So I've kind of got here, you can see we've got the revenue. I've just got some indicative numbers here. So the green is your revenue, and you might have a good season and a bad season. And over time, yes, it kind of averages up. And like even if it averages down, you've got to make some decisions. But if let's just say business goes well and I hire here, there's my first employee, and then I keep them, and then now business drops. So it's dropped down to here. And so my revenue doesn't support the employment. However, if I didn't hire anybody and then I thought, well, yes, now I know I'm in the bottom of the cycle, not as busy, and I know it's going to get busy ahead, I could hire someone. So then you hire someone, and let's just say you hire 2 people. Or even if you hire 1. The point being is if I hire here and then keep them there, now I've got money coming, or less money coming in, more money going out, and I'm more likely to then have to fire them. Then when I get to the busy season, I've got no one again. So you pretty much should try to delay hiring as much as possible until it hurts, because hiring too soon, then you've got this extra workload, and then whilst you're training them, you're not making as much money. So you need to keep a bigger cash buffer. When you're stressed, when things are at their maximum, that is when your business is at its most profitable. If you are not at stress, then everything's peachy and you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, well, now you're not effective. So you kind of always need to be under a bit of tension. You can negotiate with your clients. You can create a backlog. You can increase your prices. You can do a number of things before you have to bring a person in to do the work. So make sure you're building that pipeline by structuring your organization intelligently. So use the systems at scale and don't get shiny object syndrome. So sometimes I see everybody goes, there's got to be another app. There's an AI, there's a this, there's a that. Just slow it down. Just think a little bit more high level and really decide, don't go blowing all your money on all these fancy things that aren't really going to work for you. Just slow it down, have a think, and then you will make a better decision. And finally, everything is a pipeline. Whether it's your sales, whether it's your HR, or whether it's your ideas, everything is a pipeline. So you've got what's called an employer brand. People now seek us out, and it costs us much less in recruitment costs, because we have people walking into our office and putting their resume on our desk to say, I would like to work with you guys. That is something that dramatically reduces our recruitment costs. And it means that we've built an employer brand. So if you can get, let's just say you need to hire 1 person. Ideally, you want to have the ad go out to thousands. You then want to have, so that's the awareness piece. You then want to have maybe 50 applicants, and that's the interest piece. Then you have maybe people that want to that continue, like put in a decent application, and then you bring them in, and then they suit up and they come in and they look really good and they interview, right? So that's the desire piece. And then when you hire them, well, then they accept the job offer. That's the action piece. So it's almost exactly the same as the sales pipeline. Your HR pipeline is just another type of pipeline. So I think if we can, because then that gives you choice. Let's just say you went to market, you had 2 applicants. Now you're getting the best of 2 if they accept the job, and then you're going to have to go to market again. So cast the net wider, get a bigger pool of applicants, try to be very, sort of filter them effectively, but also, make sure you have some good candidates in the mix. Now you're choosing from, 5 or 10 really good options. And then, one mistake I see is people go and select one and then they don't accept the job, because maybe they were like trying to price themselves, or they're trying to see what they can get, or maybe use you as a negotiation back with their existing employer. So have a top 3 and then don't reveal who the winner is until you've confirmed. So approach number 1, like just say we're still deciding to number 2 and 3. Approach number 1 and go, here's the offer, do you accept? And they go, nah, I've got a bigger offer over here. Then approach number 2, because now you haven't burned those 2. Approach number 2 and say, would you like to come along? And they say, yes, great. Maybe they start and they don't work out. Or, yes, you've got to try and manage the time series to all of that communication, but it just reduces your risk that, you've gone through all this effort. If you go, oh, thanks, we found the best person, you send them the offer, and then they go, oh no, sorry, I'm out. Then when you go to those other 2, they feel second best. So don't reveal your cards too soon. Anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I think in terms of presentation, it's a shame Amanda couldn't be here. Thank you, Amanda, for contributing in the comments. Again, normally we do these together. Unfortunately, due to comms issues, she couldn't be here. But I hope you've got something out of today. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any questions, let us know in the comments. Please do hit like and subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you every Friday morning here on the Relevate community. We've also got the community, sorry. Well, let's go to here. If you've got any more questions and you'd like to be a part of what drives this, the Relevate community, we hang out with other business owners, we solve problems, we answer questions, and we have some regular face-to-face meetups, online meetups, and we do quite a lot of networking. That's a great place to go to really build your business, get these lessons. We do these founder sessions. We've got some 8-figure founders coming up. There's a podcast coming out soon with one of them. So keep an eye out, stay tuned, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Otherwise, you stay classy.